Alright, hello everybody. Back again with another word. Um, I was looking at the video that I posted yesterday, and thank you for everyone to watch. I'm thankful to God that it touched as many people as it did. And but yeah, I was watching the video and I mentioned something about grief. I mentioned something about grieving, and hearing that, I guess God led me to, I need to expound on that. I need to do something on grieving. So today's the scripture is coming from 2 Samuel chapter 12, and I'm starting at verse 15 and reading all the way to verse 23. So this is like after what this scripture takes place is after, like, if you're familiar with the story of David and Bathsheba. David, committed adultery with Uriah's wife and murdered Uriah, trying to cover it up. And this is after all of that has happened, and Nathan, rebuked him and gave the prophecy against him and everything. And this is after the child is born. God struck the child and made him sick. So this is like in that time period. So here's the word. And the Lord afflicted the child that Uriah's wife bore to David, and he became sick. And David therefore sought God on behalf of the child. And David fasted and went in and lay all night on the ground. And the elders of his house stood beside him to raise him from the ground, but he would not, nor did he eat food with them. On the seventh day the child died, and the servants of David were afraid to tell him that the child was dead, for they said, "Behold, while the child was yet alive, we spoke to him, and he did not listen to us. How then can we say to him, the child is dead? He may do himself some harm." But when David saw that his servants were whispering together, David understood that the child was dead. And David said to his servants, "Is the child dead?" And they said, "He is dead." Then David arose from the earth and washed and anointed himself and changed his clothes, and he went into the house of the Lord and worshiped. He then went to his own house, and when he asked, they set food before him, and he ate. Then his servants said to him, "What is the thing you have done? You have fasted and wept for the child while he was alive, but when the child died, you arose and ate the food." He said, "While the child was still alive, I fasted and wept, for I said, who knows whether the Lord will be gracious to me, that the child may live. But now he is dead. Why should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he will not return to me." So, the title of this message, I guess, would be Greiving is Good. Well, that's what I wrote down. But yeah, grieving is good. And again, the scripture is from 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 15 through 23, if you want to read it. So just two bullets that I put down is grieving. It can't be skipped and it can't be ignored. Because a lot of times, whether it be the death of a loved one, the loss of a relationship, loss of a friendship, I'm looking at this more of from a loss of relationship type of viewpoint perspective or whatever. But you can relate it to anything that concerns loss. But us as humans, especially using my own experience, speaking from my own experience, we don't like to feel pain. We don't like to feel grief. We only like the good emotions. We only like to be there for the good times. But when the sad times come, when the bad times come, we tend to run and we tend to hide and we tend to escape in a way. That's why most people I don't know why people do drugs. I don't know. I used to do it, but I know why I did it, because I was trying to get away. I was trying to run from everything that I was feeling on the inside. And yeah, we don't like to grieve. We don't like grief. You know, we don't like to feel bad. We don't like to feel sad. You know, we want everything to be how it is. We want everything to go our way and be how we want it to be. But, you know, that is not the case. That's not the case. That's not how life works. Everything isn't going to go the way that we want it to, you know? So, you know, going back, speaking on this from a relationship standpoint, you know, me and my ex first broke up. I didn't grieve. Like, I didn't, you know, my dad, he gave me some advice that, you know, I took it and ran with it. He said the best way to get over a girl is to get you another one. So, you know, that's what I did. You know, it's like, dang, my girl broke up with me. So let me just, instead of sitting here and, like, you know, dealing through this and processing it and grieving and, you know, mourning the relationship, the loss, you know, I just said, oh well, move on to the next one. And, you know, not saying that, you know, I said, like, moving on is like, that's something you have to do, but, you know, it has to be, like, you know, God does everything decently and in order. And, you know, when we take stuff out of order, when we try to skip steps, you know, you're more liable to fall. And you know, that's what I did. I skipped the grieving process and I went straight to the moving on part. And, you know, that caused me a lot of heartache. I've hurt a lot of people, you know, just because I was hurt, you know, and I didn't want to deal with my hurt. And, you know, that's what a lot of us do. Like, we, instead of dealing with the pain that we have built up and stored inside of us, instead of admitting that, you know, we're hurt, we're broken, somebody wronged us, or, you know, you're hurt or you're broken that you wronged somebody, and, you know, we don't want to deal with that because, like, that puts us in a bad place. Like, nobody likes to be sad, you know. And, you know, we tend to run from our emotions, so we tend to numb rather than cure. You know, like athletes, like, when they have this thing called, it's this drug called Novocaine, and, you know, also a song by Frank Ocean. But yeah, they got a drug called Novocaine, and, you know, athletes, when they would get injured or something like that, so you sprain an ankle or something like that, they would get Novocaine shots and wherever the injury was to numb it, so they couldn't feel it anymore. And, you know, they would go out, yeah, they couldn't feel the pain, but that doesn't mean that the injury wasn't still there. And that's what, you know, we like to do. Like, we don't like to let stuff heal. You know, people, like, especially people, speaking to athletes, like, you know, people that love their sport or whatever, you know, they get hurt. It's like, bro, coach, I'm hurt, but, you know, give me something to, like, give me a painkiller, give me an aspirin, give me something to take the pain away so I can get back out there. But it's like, no, like, you can't do that, because you're only going to end up hurting yourself more, as opposed to you just, you know, taking a break, sitting back and healing. You know, you can't get hurt and then jump back into the same thing that hurts you. You know, you got to take time. You got to take a step back. You feel me? Like, you can't just be all up in the mix. You can't be all up in the sauce right after you just got burnt. You know, that didn't make sense, but, you know, it sounded better in my head. But yeah, grieving, you have to grieve, because, you know, although grieving that wasn't in God's perfect will. I just posted something on my Instagram story about, like, this dude posted about how Jesus wept, and he was explaining how, like, why Jesus wept. You know, when Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, you know, Jesus had the power in his words, like, to raise a man from the dead, but yet he still cried. Like, why did he cry if he knew he could raise him from the dead? And then he went on to